The sun hung low over the alien colony, spilling pale orange light across the market. The air smelled of spice, smoke, and metal. Merchants shouted prices, bargaining with customers in dozens of different languages, but Liara moved quietly between the stalls, head down, trying to be invisible. She clutched a wooden crate against her thin chest, its weight straining her arms. Her employer, a thick-scaled alien with red eyes, barked at her to hurry. She stumbled over a loose stone, but caught herself before falling. A few alien women nearby laughed softly, their voices sharp and cruel. One of them whispered just loud enough for Liara to hear, "Too small, too thin." Not breeding material, Liara's face burned, but she said nothing. It wasn't the first time she had heard those words. Among her people, physical strength and wide hips were signs of high value. A woman like Liara, with a narrow frame and shy eyes, was considered weak. She had accepted that she would never be chosen for anything important. She would live as a servant until she grew old. She set the crate down at her employer's stall, her arms aching, before she could rest. He ordered her to fetch more supplies from the far end of the market. She obeyed without a word, weaving through the crowd. Her eyes stayed on the ground. It was easier that way. No one looked at her, and she didn't have to see their judgment. That was when she heard a voice. Not the harsh tone of her employer or the gossip of other aliens. This voice was calm, warm, and carried a strange kind of strength. "You're stronger than you look." Liara froze. The words felt like they didn't belong to this place. She lifted her head and saw a human man standing beside a stall piled high with metal tools and fabrics. He was tall for a human, broad-shouldered, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to see right through her. He had a small, friendly smile, the kind that didn't mock or pity. For a moment, she wondered if he was talking to someone else. But he was looking directly at her. Her first instinct was to turn away. But something in his tone stopped her. She managed to ask, "What?" In a quiet voice, he nodded toward the crate she carried. "That thing's heavy, and you walked all the way here without dropping it." "It's impressive." Liara didn't know what to say. No one had ever called her impressive before. Most only noticed her when she failed at something. She felt her chest tighten in a strange way. Not fear, not shame. Something else. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. He just gave her another nod and turned back to his business. She stood there for a moment longer, watching him talk to another merchant. Something about the way he moved, confident, but not arrogant, made her curious. Humans were rare on this colony, and most kept to themselves. Yet this one had spoken to her like she was worth noticing. Her employer's voice snapped her back to reality. "Move, girl. We don't have all day." She hurried away, the human's words still echoing in her mind. "Stronger than you look." Later that afternoon, Liara passed by the same stall again. The human was still there, speaking to an alien child who had tripped and dropped a small basket. He crouched down, helped gather the spilled fruit, and gave the child a gentle pat on the shoulder. Liara slowed her steps without meaning to. She had never seen someone treat others like that in the market, especially not strangers. The human glanced up and caught her watching. For a moment, their eyes met again. It wasn't the cold, dismissive glance she was used to. It was like he was trying to read her, to understand something about her. She quickly turned away, her heart beating faster than it should. By the time the market began to close, Liara found herself scanning the crowd for him without realizing it. She spotted him loading goods into a small cargo vehicle. His movements steady and practiced. He looked like someone who belonged anywhere he went. She, on the other hand, had never felt like she belonged anywhere. As the sky darkened, she returned to her small sleeping space behind her employer's shop. She lay on her thin blanket, staring at the ceiling. Her body was tired, but her mind was restless. Why had his words mattered so much? Why did she keep hearing them in her head? She had heard hundreds of insults in her life, and they always faded quickly, but one kind sentence from a stranger. It felt like it had planted something inside her, something small, but alive. She didn't know it yet, but that seed was about to grow, and it would change everything. The next morning. The market was already buzzing with voices when Liara arrived. With the first delivery, she tried to keep her focus on the path ahead, but her eyes kept drifting toward the spot where she had seen the human yesterday. It was strange, the way his words had stayed in her mind all night. She told herself it didn't matter, that she would probably never see him again. Still, her chest felt a little tight when she didn't spot him right away. Her employer sent her to buy new fabric rolls from the far stalls, and that was when she saw him. He wasn't at a merchant's table this time. Instead, he was standing between a small alien child and 3 older boys who were shoving and laughing. The human's stance was calm but solid, his voice low but firm as he told the boys to leave. Something in his tone made them hesitate, then back away without another word. The child looked up at him with wide eyes, clutching their basket. He knelt down, brushed the dust from the child's sleeve, and handed the basket back. Liara had stopped walking without realizing it. When he noticed her, he didn't seem surprised. He gave her the same kind smile as yesterday and said, "You're watching again." She felt her face warm and quickly stepped forward, pretending she was just passing by. "I wasn't," she began, but he tilted his head, not believing her. "Do you need help carrying those?" he asked, pointing to the 2 fabric rolls tucked under her arm. Liara almost refused out of habit. She had spent her life doing everything alone, but something in his expression made her pause. Without answering, she let him take 1 roll. They walked together through the busy path, the crowd parting slightly for him in a way they never did for her. It felt strange to be beside someone who drew attention without trying. She kept her eyes forward and asked, "Why did you stop those boys?" He shrugged because it was wrong. She frowned. "It's not your problem." He glanced at her. "Neither was helping you yesterday, but here we are." She didn't know how to answer that, so she stayed quiet. After a while, he said, "You don't talk much." Liara almost laughed at the obviousness of it. "There's nothing worth saying." "Not true," he replied immediately. "You just don't think anyone wants to hear it." His voice was so certain it made her chest ache in a way she didn't understand. They reached her employer's stall, and she took the roll from him. "Thank you," she murmured. "You're welcome," he said, then added with a small grin, "And next time, I expect you to carry 3 of these." She almost smiled, but caught herself before it could fully form. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but her thoughts kept returning to him. She realized she didn't even know his name. She told herself it didn't matter. Humans rarely stayed long on this colony, yet something about the way he spoke, the way he looked at her without that usual hint of judgment, made her want to know more later. When the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the market, Liara overheard 2 merchants talking in hushed voices. They spoke of a human trader named Evan, newly arrived from a frontier world. He'd come to sell rare tools and barter for supplies before heading deeper into the sector. But what caught her attention was the last thing they said, that Evan had already drawn the suspicion of her clan leader. Her stomach tightened. Humans weren't bound by clan rules, but anyone who stood out too much or challenged the elders could find themselves in trouble. She remembered the way the clan leader's eyes had followed her before, and now the thought of them noticing Evan made her uneasy. That night, she sat in her small corner behind the shop, unable to rest. She didn't know why she cared. Evan was nothing to her, just a stranger who had said a kind thing. Yet she kept replaying the moment when he stepped between the child and the bullies. The quiet confidence, the way he didn't need to raise his voice to be obeyed. Her people measured worth by physical size, but this human seemed to carry something else entirely, and for the first time in a long time. She wondered if maybe there was a different way to see value. When she finally closed her eyes, she told herself she wouldn't look for him tomorrow. But deep down, she knew that if she saw him again, she wouldn't walk away. The morning heat came early, turning the market air heavy and sticky. Liara was sent to deliver a message to the cloth supplier. But halfway there, she slowed her steps. She had caught a fragment of conversation from two of her clan's elders, standing by the spice stall. At first, she didn't think it concerned her until she heard her own name. "She will be sold at the next moon," one elder muttered. "The buyer from Kerdon wants laborers." "Weak ones are cheaper," the other replied with a dry laugh. Lyra's chest tightened. She had always known this was possible, but hearing it said so plainly was like being struck in the stomach. They didn't even speak about her as a person. Only as a thing to be traded, the elders moved on, their voices blending into the market noise. She stood frozen, the sound of her own heartbeat drowning out everything else. She forced herself to keep walking, even though her legs felt unsteady. Her mind spun in 1,000 directions. She had no savings, no place to hide, no family to protect her once the sale happened. She would be taken far from the colony and likely never return. She told herself it was useless to fight it. People had already decided she had no value. What chance did she have? She delivered the message, but the words barely registered in her mouth. On her way back, she stopped at the corner where Evan's stall usually stood. He was there, leaning over a crate of tools. Haggling with a merchant, she hesitated, not wanting him to see her like this, eyes down, shoulders heavy, but he noticed anyway. "You look like someone just told you the sky was falling," he said quietly. Stepping closer, she didn't answer. His gaze sharpened. "What happened?" She shook her head. "It's not your problem." "Maybe not," he said, "but you're telling me anyway." Something in his tone made her words spill out before she could stop them. "They're selling me," she whispered. "Next moon. Off-world. Cheap labor." Evan didn't react with pity, which surprised her. Instead, his jaw tightened, his voice calm but firm. "Do you want that?" She stared at him, almost offended. "It doesn't matter what I want." "I don't get to choose." "Then maybe their eyes are blind," he said, his voice low but steady. She opened her mouth to reply, but movement behind him caught her eye. The clan leader himself had stopped at a nearby stall, pretending to inspect fruit, but his sharp gaze was fixed on them. Lyra's blood ran cold. If the leader suspected she was speaking to a human about clan matters, things could get worse very quickly. Evan followed her glance and seemed to understand without needing an explanation. He lowered his voice. "Meet me tonight, outside the west gate. We'll talk without an audience." She wanted to refuse. She had been taught all her life to avoid trouble, but some quiet part of her didn't want to walk away. She gave the smallest nod, then hurried back to her work before the leader could confront her. The hours dragged, every moment heavy with the knowledge that her future was being decided without her. Her employer barked orders, but she barely heard them. Her mind kept drifting to the west gate, wondering if Evan would actually be there when night finally fell. The market emptied. Lanterns swayed in the warm breeze, casting soft light on the dusty road. Liara waited until her employer was asleep before slipping away. She kept to the shadows, her heart pounding with every step. If anyone saw her, they might report her to the clan leader. The west gate loomed ahead, its metal frame glowing faintly. In the moonlight, Evan was leaning against a cargo crate, arms crossed, as if he had been waiting for hours. "You came," he said simply. Liara crossed her arms too, hiding her nerves. "You didn't exactly give me a choice," he smiled. Faintly, "You always have a choice." Even if they tell you otherwise. They talked for a long time, her words halting at first, then spilling out as the tension loosened. She told him about her life, the way she had always been called weak, the way her future had never belonged. To her, he listened without interrupting, his eyes steady. When she finished, he said, "Then maybe it's time to take it back." She almost laughed. "And how would I do that?" "I have nothing." "You have more than you think," he replied. "I've seen it. You don't give up when you're carrying something heavy. You move fast when danger's near. You notice things other people miss." His words made her chest ache again. That same strange feeling she couldn't name. She had spent her life believing she was worth nothing, and yet, here was someone insisting she had worth. Before she could answer, a sound in the distance made them both turn. Footsteps, steady and deliberate. Evan's expression darkened. "We're being watched," from the shadows. The clan leader stepped forward, his gaze cold and sharp. "So," he said slowly, "this is where the human spends his evenings." Lyra's stomach twisted. She knew, in that moment, that whatever happened next would decide everything. The clan leader's eyes burned with cold fire as he stepped from the shadows, his tall frame blocking the faint moonlight. He looked at Evan with sharp suspicion, and then down at Lyra, as if she were a prize to be claimed or discarded. "So," the leader said slowly, "a human dares to involve himself in our affairs." Evan did not flinch, though his gaze was steady and clear. "I am not here to cause trouble, but to protect someone you have already decided to discard," he said calmly. The leader laughed, a low, harsh sound that echoed in the quiet night. "Protect. You protect weaklings. Our laws are clear. Lyra is no more than a tool to be sold." Lyra's heart hammered fiercely. But Evan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Strength is not always muscle and size. She carries courage that even you may not understand." The leader's expression darkened, and he raised a hand, signaling his guards. "Prove her worth," he said, "and I might reconsider. Fail, and she leaves as planned." Evan's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. "What is this trial?" The leader's voice dropped to a whisper, as if sharing a secret with the night itself. "You must cross the ravine of shadows, retrieve the heartstone crystal from the deepest cave, and return before dawn. Only those worthy can survive." Evan's gaze flicked to Lyra, who felt a cold fear grip her. She had heard stories of the ravine, a dangerous place where many had vanished, never to return. "Why would you let a human try?" she asked, disbelief in her voice. The leader smiled cruelly. "Because even a fool can die trying." Evan turned back to Lyra, his voice softer now. "We face it together," he said simply. Lyra shook her head. "You don't have to do this for me," he smiled. "I choose to." A strange warmth spread through her chest. Stronger than before, she realized then that he did not see her as weak. He saw her as a partner, an equal. The night passed with restless sleep, filled with dreams of darkness and stone, when dawn painted the sky with pale pinks and blues. They met at the village edge, ready to begin the trial. The ravine stretched before them like a yawning mouth shrouded in mist and shadow. Lyra's hands trembled as she gripped a simple rope Evan had brought. "Stay close," he said. "We will need each other." Their journey into the ravine was slow and tense. Jagged rocks and narrow paths tested their balance. At times, the mist grew thick, hiding dangers lurking unseen. Strange sounds echoed, growls, whispers, but neither spoke of fear. Lyra found herself moving faster than she expected, her small frame slipping through tight spaces with ease. Evan's strength cleared paths and protected her from falling stones. At the darkest point of the ravine, they reached the cave entrance, black and foreboding. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. Every step echoing loudly, their eyes adjusted, slowly revealing glittering crystals embedded in the walls. At the center, resting on a stone pedestal, was the Heartstone, glowing with a soft blue light. Lyra stepped forward, but suddenly the ground beneath trembled. A shadow beast emerged from the darkness, eyes glowing red, teeth bared. it lunged at them. Fast and fierce, Evan moved quickly, shielding Liara. But the beast was strong. Liara's heart pounded, but she remembered his words. Strength is not just muscle. She reached into her bag and threw a small flash grenade, a light burst that blinded the beast momentarily. Seizing the chance, Evan grabbed the heartstone, and they sprinted for the cave entrance. The beast roared behind them, but the mist swallowed its chase. Outside, breathless but alive, they looked at each other with new respect. Liara felt a thrill of pride. She had faced the impossible and lived. Evan smiled and said, "You did more than survive. You saved us both." Their journey back was faster, fueled by adrenaline and hope, as the first rays of dawn touched the village. They arrived to find the elders waiting, faces unreadable. The clan leader studied them both, then slowly nodded. "You have proven her worth in ways words cannot," he said. Lyra's chest swelled with a feeling new and bright victory. Evan's hand brushed hers briefly, a silent promise of more to come. The chapter closed with a quiet hope. The beginning of a new story, one where Liara was no longer just breeding material, but someone strong enough to shape her own fate. Asterisk. The morning sun was warm but soft when Liara and Evan set out again, this time away from the village and toward the wild edges of the colony. The air was thick with the scent of strange plants and distant rain. They moved slowly, alert to every sound, knowing the trial had not truly ended. Liara walked with a quiet confidence now, the weight of the heartstone still in her pack. She had surprised herself in the cave, her quick thinking, her calm under pressure, things she never believed she had. Evan noticed this change, watching her with a mix of respect and something deeper. "You're not the same girl I met in the market," he said quietly. She smiled. A real smile, neither are you. But the colony was not kind to those who dared to break its old rules. As they crossed a narrow ridge, a low growl came from the shadows. A large predator stepped forward, its eyes gleaming with hunger. Evan raised his arm, signaling her to stay behind him. The beast moved fast, muscles rippling under thick fur. But Evan held his ground. Weapon drawn, Lyra's heart pounded, but she remembered the lesson from the cave. Strength is also in the mind. Without hesitation, she spotted a narrow ledge above the beast, just wide enough to climb. She shouted to Evan, "Distract it. I'll get behind." He nodded, moving with steady steps. Drawing the predator's attention, Liara climbed swiftly, breath sharp in her lungs. From above, she spotted a sharp rock, perfect to use as a trap. She dropped it down with all her strength, hitting the predator's shoulder. It howled in pain and turned, giving Evan the chance to strike. The danger passed, but the moment sealed a silent bond between them. Evan looked up at her, eyes shining. "You saved my life." She shrugged, feeling a warmth spread through her. "We saved each other." That evening, they made camp near a quiet river, the stars beginning to twinkle above. Sitting by the fire, Evan pulled out a small device and scanned the heartstone. "It's rare," he said, "more than your clan knows. It's a symbol of power and respect." Liara touched the glowing stone lightly. "Then maybe this trial wasn't just about survival. Maybe it was about showing them who you really are." Evan replied. She looked at him, a question in her eyes. He smiled softly. "You are stronger than they ever believed." Their conversation was interrupted by distant voices and footsteps. Lyra's body tensed. "We're not alone." Evan grabbed his weapon, motioning her to hide. From the darkness came a group of armed clan guards, their faces grim. The leader's voice cut through the night. "Bring her back. The trial is over." Evan stepped forward, blocking their path. "She's not going anywhere until you listen." The guards hesitated, unsure how to react to a human standing against their orders. Tension thickened like a storm about to break. Liara stood tall, her fear replaced by determination. No, she said firmly. I choose my own path. The clan leader scowled. You will obey. But Evan shook his head. Not this time, with a sudden roar. He charged at the guards, forcing them back. Liara grabbed the Heartstone and ran alongside him. The night became a blur of shouts, running feet, and desperate courage. Together, they escaped into the wild, leaving behind the rules that had tried to cage Liara her whole life. As dawn broke over the horizon, she felt a new power growing inside her, the power to choose, to fight, to be free. The forest was thick and dark as Liara and Evan pressed deeper into the unknown. Every step was soft on the moss-covered ground, but the sounds of the wild echoed around them, distant howls, rustling leaves, snapping branches. They moved quickly but carefully, knowing the clan's guards would not give up easily. Liara's heart still raced from their narrow escape, but she felt different, stronger, braver. Evan glanced at her, noticing the change. You're not afraid anymore, he said, quietly. She shook her head. I'm scared. But I'm tired of running, he nodded. Then let's find a place where you don't have to. As they walked, Evan shared stories of his home world. Tales of wide oceans, tall mountains, and cities that never slept. Liara listened, eyes wide with wonder, imagining a life beyond the colony's cold rules. She began to dream of a future where she was not judged by her size or strength, but by who she was inside. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep growl rumbled through the trees, and from the shadows came a massive creature with glowing eyes and sharp claws. Evan stepped in front of Liara, weapon raised, but the beast was fast and fierce. Liara's breath caught in her throat, but then she remembered the trial. She picked up a fallen branch and swung it with all her might, striking the creature's side. It roared in pain and turned away, disappearing into the darkness. That was brave, Evan said, smiling. Liara felt a warm glow in her chest. I am not weak, she said firmly. No, you're not, Evan agreed, and soon, everyone will see that night, as they rested under the stars. Liara pulled the Heartstone from her pack. Its soft blue light seemed to pulse with life. She held it close, feeling its power flow through her. Evan watched her quietly, then spoke. This stone is more than a symbol. It's a promise that strength comes in many forms. Liara looked up at him, eyes shining. Thank you for seeing me, he smiled gently. You were never invisible to me. But their peace was short-lived. From the darkness, footsteps approached. Quick and urgent, a small group of rebels from a neighboring colony emerged, wary but curious. Their leader, a fierce alien woman, stepped forward, eyes locked on Liara. You carry the Heartstone, she said, voice low. The symbol of freedom. Liara nodded. I want to be free. From my past, from my clan, the rebel leader smiled. Then join us. We fight for those who are cast aside. Evan and Liara exchanged glances, hope rising between them. For the first time, Liara felt she was part of something greater. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The dawn broke gently over the horizon, painting the sky with soft pinks and golds. Liara stood at the edge of a new world, the cold fears of her past slowly melting away. Beside her, Evan watched with steady eyes, a quiet strength in his calm presence. They had crossed so much together, danger, doubt, and darkness. And now the future waited. Wide and open, the rebel camp was alive with activity. But Liara felt calm for the first time in her life. Faces once strangers now looked at her with respect, even hope. She was no longer the outcast who hid in the market shadows. She had become a symbol not just of survival, but of courage and change. One evening, as the stars shimmered above their camp, Evan and Liara sat by the fire. She held the Heartstone, its blue glow steady in the quiet night. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You changed everything," he said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who thought they were powerless." Liara smiled, a deep, real smile that reached her eyes. "I never believed I could be anything more," she whispered. "But you showed me the truth." Their hands found each other, fingers entwining. In that moment, Liara felt a warmth she had never known. Belonging, acceptance, love, the barriers built by clans, by rules, by fear, seemed to fall away. She was no longer defined by others' judgments or her own doubts. She was free to choose her own path, with Evan by her side. But freedom was not without cost. News came that her old clan had sent hunters to bring her back. Liara stood tall. No longer the frightened girl, but a warrior ready to fight. Evan stood beside her, weapon in hand, ready to defend their new life together. When the hunters arrived, the camp prepared, fierce and united. The battle was swift and fierce, but the rebels fought with heart and strength. Liara moved with grace and power. Every step a statement. She was no longer property or prize. She fought not just for survival, but for a future where no one would be sold or cast aside. After the last hunter fled, the camp erupted in cheers. Liara looked at Evan, eyes shining with pride and love. "We did this," she said, "together." He nodded, "And together, we will build something new." The story ended not with an ending, but a beginning, a journey of hope, of change, and of the human and alien who dared to believe in each other. Lyra's heart beat steady and strong, full of dreams, for the first time. She was not just breeding material or weak, she was a force that would shape the stars.